A war veteran, haunted by his past, saves a mysterious woman in a city park, only to discover she's an exiled princess from another planet, hunted by ruthless bounty hunters and a power-hungry warlord. Thrust into a galactic conflict he never asked for, he must choose, walk away, or stand between a tyrant and a throne. What begins as an act of instinct becomes a fight for freedom across the stars. This isn't just a rescue, it's the beginning of a revolution. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful story. It was the kind of afternoon that made people forget the world's problems. The park was full of laughter and sunshine. Children ran between benches, their squeals echoing over the sound of water spraying from the fountain. Couples strolled. Hand in hand, old men argued about chess, and joggers passed by in steady rhythms. On one worn bench near the edge of the fountain, Noah sat quietly, sipping from a paper cup that smelled more like burnt beans than real coffee. His back was straight, but one shoulder sagged slightly, a reminder of a war he never talked about. His eyes, tired but watchful, moved slowly across the crowd. He had no particular reason to be there, just a habit of sitting in places where people moved freely. It reminded him that the world could still feel normal, even if he didn't. But today something was different. At first it was just a flicker in the corner of his vision, a woman standing near the park's entrance. She wore jeans and a pale coat, her posture still intense. While everyone else seemed relaxed, she looked out of place. Her eyes darted from person to person, and she clutched a strange device in her hand, something metallic and round like a mix between a pager and a compass. Noah's instincts twitched. She wasn't looking for someone. She was checking for someone, or something. Her steps were uncertain, like someone trying not to draw attention while also trying not to trip. That's when Noah saw the other men, 3 of them, spread out, dressed in dark suits that seemed too stiff for the warm afternoon. Their walk was smooth, too smooth. Predators often moved that way, making sure not to bump into anyone, yet closing distance with purpose. They weren't holding hands or laughing. They didn't have dogs or kids or phones. They had only eyes locked on the nervous woman. Noah sat up a little straighter. His hand brushed the inside of his coat even though he knew there was nothing there. Old habits died hard. He didn't know what was going on. Maybe it was just a strange coincidence, but something about the way the woman was scanning her surroundings reminded him of people who were running from something they couldn't explain. The woman turned down a path lined with trees. The 3 men followed. So did Noah. He moved quickly, slipping past a group of teenagers and crossing behind the fountain. His boots tapped softly on the concrete. By the time he reached the path, the woman had picked up her pace. She glanced over her shoulder, then broke into a fast walk. Her steps, quick and uneven. The men followed without rushing. They didn't need to. They already had her boxed in. Noah's heart beat faster. He wasn't a hero, not anymore. But he couldn't walk away. He hated that feeling, the one that twisted in his gut and said, "This isn't right," he called out, his voice loud and firm. "Hey, you all right, miss?" The woman stopped, spinning toward him, her eyes wide. The men froze. One of them turned slowly, his hand dipping toward the inside of his jacket. Noah stepped between them, arms loose at his sides, body relaxed but ready. Something wrong here? The one in front, tall, square jaw, the kind of face that looked carved out of stone, smiled without warmth. "Walk away, this doesn't concern you." Noah didn't blink. "Sure seems like it does." The woman didn't speak, but she moved closer to him, like someone edging toward safety. Her hands trembled. That was all the answer he needed. The moment broke fast. One of the men lunged. Noah reacted without thinking. He dropped low, twisting to the side and slamming his elbow into the man's gut. The second man moved faster. From his coat, he pulled a sleek black weapon, one Noah had never seen before. It made a strange hum as it powered up. "Get down," Noah shouted, shoving the woman behind him. A flash of blue light filled the air. A burning pain tore through Noah's shoulder. He stumbled but didn't fall. The air tasted like metal, and his ears rang. The third man raised his arm, but Noah was already moving. He grabbed a nearby trash bin and hurled it. It smashed into the man's chest, knocking him off balance. The other two hesitated. That was all the opening Noah needed. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing the woman's arm. They ran through the trees, down the winding path, through confused crowds. His shoulder screamed with each step, blood soaking through his shirt, but he kept going. They ducked into a narrow alley beside a maintenance building. There, Noah finally stopped. He dropped to one knee, panting, the world spinning around him. The woman knelt beside him. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. He forced a smile. "Yeah, well, couldn't let them hurt you." She looked at him, eyes full of something he couldn't place. Then she pressed a button on her strange device. A soft hum filled the air. Heat spread through his body, gentle and powerful. He gasped, looking down to see his shoulder wound knitting itself closed. He stared. What is that?" The woman hesitated. "It's not from here." Noah met her gaze. "Who are you?" "My name is Celine," she said. "And I'm not from this world." They both looked back toward the park, the sounds of sirens faint in the distance. "They'll come again," she said. Noah nodded. He didn't know what this was yet, or why he felt the pull to protect her. But he knew one thing: this wasn't over. And wherever she came from, whatever she was running from, it had just become his problem too. The first thing Noah noticed, when he opened his eyes, was the ceiling. It glowed with soft, swirling colors like clouds shifting underwater. He blinked and frowned. This wasn't the alley. This wasn't even a hospital. He sat up slowly, and to his surprise, his shoulder didn't hurt. There was no blood, no bandage, just smooth, unbroken skin where the burn had been. The hum of machines filled the air around him, quiet but constant. He was lying on a padded surface that resembled a bed, but looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. He swung his legs over the side and stood up. The room was silver and sleek, with smooth walls and glowing panels. Everything shimmered faintly, like the whole space was alive with energy. Just as he started to wonder if this was all a dream, the door slid open without a sound. Celine stood there, her appearance completely changed. The simple coat and jeans were gone. She now wore a gown that shimmered in layers of soft light, with thin threads of glowing patterns running along the fabric. She didn't look like someone running anymore. She looked like someone important, someone powerful. "You're awake," she said, her voice calm. "Where are we?" Noah asked, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar room. "You're safe," she said as she walked in. "I healed your wound. It was the least I could do." Noah looked down at his shoulder again, still stunned. "That wasn't any ordinary weapon. They used. And that thing you used to heal me, it's not from here, is it?" Celine shook her head. "No, it's not." Noah sat back on the bed, rubbing his hands over his face. "I need you to be straight with me. What's going on? Who are those men? Why are you being chased?" Celine stood quietly for a moment before answering. "My name is Celine Rin. I'm not from Earth. I come from a planet called Noria. I was born into the ruling family there. My mother was queen. When she passed, I became the heir." Noah blinked, trying to take it all in. "So, you're a princess?" She nodded. "But I left. I had to. A man named General Trask, he used to serve under my mother, decided he wanted the throne for himself. He tried to force a political union between us to legitimize his rule. I refused. So he labeled me a traitor and sent bounty hunters to bring me back." Noah stood up and paced the room, trying to absorb what she was telling him. "So those guys in the park were aliens? Mercenaries," she said. "Hired by Trask. He won't stop until I'm captured or worse. And now I'm involved," Noah muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Fantastic. I go for a walk in the park and end up in the middle of some space opera." Celine looked at him, guilt in her eyes. "I never meant to drag anyone into this, especially not someone who saved my life." Noah met her gaze. I didn't save you because I knew any of this. I saw someone in danger, and I acted. That's it. Still, she said softly, you risked your life for me. Twice now. The ship suddenly shook, the lights flickering. A siren began to blare somewhere above them. What was that? Noah asked, instantly alert. Selene moved quickly to the wall, touching a panel that brought up a glowing display of symbols. We're being followed. Another hunter ship is closing in. Noah stepped closer to the screen. A red dot moved rapidly toward a small blue triangle, presumably their ship. How did they find us? They must have planted a tracker, Selene said, already pulling open a small compartment and digging through equipment. She grabbed a scanning device and rushed into the hallway. I'll find it. Just be ready. Noah followed her into the corridor. The interior of the ship was just as futuristic. Panels of glowing light, smooth metal, and doors that opened with a whisper. He felt like he was walking through someone else's dream. Within seconds, Selene found the tracker lodged near the engine room. She yanked it out and crushed it with her boot. That'll buy us some time, but they're already close. Back in the control room, the screen now showed the red dot almost touching theirs. They're going to fire, Noah said. Then we run, Selene replied, jumping into the pilot's seat and tapping the controls with practiced hands. Noah watched the ship lurch forward, its engines roaring to life. But another blast struck, their tail rocking the vessel. Sparks flew from one of the side panels. Can this thing fight back? He asked. It's a diplomatic vessel, she said. It wasn't built for combat, but it can outrun them if I reroute the energy from non-essential systems to the thrusters. Do it, Noah said, gripping the side of her seat. I'll keep an eye on the radar. Selene's fingers moved fast, dimming the lights and shifting the power. The ship gave a deep rumble, then surged forward, weaving through an asteroid. Belt ahead. Behind them, the hunter ship pursued, firing bursts of blue energy. We need cover, Noah said. There. Cut right. That cluster. Selene nodded and dove between the rocks. The chase became a deadly dance, dodging meteors while the enemy fired from behind. A blast grazed their wing, but Selene didn't flinch. Noah could see her focus. Eyes locked. Steady hands. Almost there, she muttered. With one last burst of speed, they shot out the far side of the asteroid field. The hunter ship, too slow to react, clipped a spinning boulder and spiraled out of view. Noah let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Well, that was fun. Selene smiled faintly. We're safe, for now. He turned to her. So what now? We find someone who can help us, she said. An old friend of my mother's. He might be the only one left who can help stop Trask. Noah raised an eyebrow. Where is he? Selene hesitated. On a moon called Turvan 5. It's not exactly a friendly place. Noah sat back in the co-pilot seat. Figures. I guess the quiet life will have to wait. The stars outside streaked by as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. Neither of them spoke, but they both knew things were just beginning. The moon known as Turvan 5 was nothing like Earth. It didn't have trees or oceans or even clouds. It was rocky, harsh, and covered in deep canyons that twisted like scars across its dusty surface. From space, it looked lifeless, but beneath the surface was a maze of tunnels, hideouts and outposts used by smugglers, mercenaries, and people who didn't want to be found, the kind of place where everyone had a weapon, and no one asked questions. Noah stood at the top of a cliff overlooking one of the larger settlements. The buildings were stacked tightly together, made of scrap metal and old starship parts, glowing faintly under the moon's thin atmosphere. He glanced at Selene, who had changed again. Gone was the gown and the glow. Now she wore a dark jacket, utility boots, and a hood that shadowed her face. She didn't look like royalty here. She looked like someone trying not to get shot. Your friend lives down there? Noah asked, his voice low. Selene nodded. Captain Dreesen. He was once my mother's chief strategist. Brilliant, paranoid, and not exactly a fan of visitors. Sounds, Like a charmer, Noah muttered. How do we find him? He'll find us, she replied. If we get close enough, his network will notice. And if he still remembers the old codes, he'll know it's me. As they made their way through the winding paths toward the settlement, Noah kept a careful watch. The people here were tough and suspicious. No one smiled. Most carried weapons on their hips or backs, and the ones who didn't still looked like trouble. It wasn't a place for tourists. They entered a bar built into the side of a canyon wall. Inside, the lighting was dim, the air thick with smoke, and the silence was broken only by the hum of old machinery and low conversations. Celine walked to the bar and ordered water. Noah stood behind her, scanning every face in the room. Then, without warning, a man approached them, tall, thin, with silver hair tied back, and one mechanical eye that glowed faintly. His clothes were worn, but his stance was alert. Celine Rinn, he said calmly. Celine turned slowly. Dreesen. He looked her over with a small frown. I thought you were dead. Not yet, she said. But that could change if you don't help us. Dreesen motioned for them to follow. He led them through a hidden door in the back of the bar, down a narrow hallway and into a hidden room filled with screens, maps, and blinking lights. It was a war room disguised as storage. Noah was impressed. So, Dreesen said, turning to them. Why now? Trask is tightening his grip, Celine explained. He's got more ships, more mercenaries. He's hunting me non-stop. We need a plan to stop him before he takes full control. Dreesen stared at her. You mean before he declares himself ruler and starts building an empire? Exactly, she said. We want to hit his flagship, the command vessel in orbit above Noria. Cut off the head. Dreesen didn't speak right away. He turned to his console and tapped a few keys. A 3D image of a large ship appeared above the table, rotating slowly. That's not a simple job, he said. The flagship is heavily armed and shielded. It doesn't dock on planets. It floats in orbit with its own army. You'd need a strike team, access codes, and enough luck to fill a galaxy. Do you still have people? Celine asked. Dreesen nodded slowly. A few I trust and a few who owe me. But this is more than a fight. If you go after Trask and fail, he'll crush any hope left in the resistance. We won't fail, Noah said firmly. We've come this far. Before Dreesen could reply, a loud alarm blared through the room. Red lights flashed on the walls. One of the monitors showed movement at the entrance of the settlement. Several ships descending quickly, all marked with Trask's sigil. They found us, Selena said, her voice tight. Dreesen cursed under his breath. We must have tripped a sensor when you landed. You brought heat right to my door. Noah drew his weapon and moved to the nearest window. We can hold them off long enough for you to escape. I'm not leaving you behind, Celine said. Don't have time to argue, Dreesen said. He handed her a small device. This leads to a tunnel out of the canyon. It connects to an old smuggler's route. It'll take you to a dock where one of my old ships is hidden. You two go. I'll draw them away. Noah shook his head. We're not leaving you either. Dreesen looked at him with a crooked smile. That's noble. But if I don't distract them, none of us makes it out. Besides, I've lived long enough on this rock. Celine hesitated, then nodded. We'll make it count. With a final glance back, they rushed through the tunnel, the walls shaking as explosions hit the surface above. Celine held the device tightly, guiding them through the darkness. Noah stayed close, his mind racing. This wasn't just about escape anymore. They had a chance, a real one, to end this. As they reached the hidden dock and climbed aboard the old vessel, Celine turned to him. Next stop, Trask's ship. Noah nodded. Let's finish what we started. And with a roar of its ancient engines, their ship lifted off, leaving Turvan 5 behind and heading straight into the heart of the storm. The ship groaned as it exited hyperspace, stars stretching back into their usual shapes around them. Noah sat in the co-pilot's seat, strapping himself in tighter as the vessel shook beneath them. Celine was quiet, her hands steady on the controls. The view ahead filled the window, an enormous battleship floating above the glowing blue curve of the planet Noria, It was shaped like a dagger, sleek and deadly, surrounded by smaller defense ships and patrols. This was General Trask's command ship. This was where everything would end. Noah stared at the flagship. Looks friendly. Celine didn't smile. We only have one shot. Dreyson's team already disabled part of their defense grid. The hangar door should be unguarded for a few minutes, but once we're in, the window closes. Noah checked his gear. He had a stun rifle, a sidearm, and a short blade clipped to his belt. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Ready when you are. Celine nodded and pushed the throttle. The ship dove toward the massive vessel, passing through the weakened shield and slipping into the hangar bay. The moment they touched down, the ramp dropped. Noah was the first out, scanning the area. It was quiet. Too quiet. They moved fast, keeping low, ducking behind cargo crates and containers, weaving through the shadows toward the nearest corridor. Inside, the air was cooler. The walls hummed with power and red lights blinked on every corner. Selene moved ahead, leading the way through the maze of halls with silent focus. She knew where the command center was. She had lived on a similar ship once, back when her mother was queen. That memory stayed buried in her mind, but the structure never changed. Suddenly, a door slid open ahead. Armed guards spilled into the corridor. Noah didn't wait. He fired first, hitting the lead man in the chest. The stun bolt knocked him flat. Celine moved behind him, her blaster quick and precise. The fight was short, but loud. By the end, 5 guards lay unconscious and the alarm had begun to wail through the ship. "They know we're here," Noah said, breathing heavily. "We're close," Selena replied. "Just one more level." They took a lift to the upper deck. As the doors opened, they stepped into a massive control room filled with glowing panels and widescreens. At the center of it all stood General Trask. He wore black armor with sharp silver lines running along the chest and shoulders. His eyes locked onto Selene immediately, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Well," he said, his voice deep and calm. "The princess returns." Selene raised her blaster. "This ends now." Trask laughed. "You still think you can lead? You still think they'll follow you? You abandoned them." "I refuse to be your puppet," Selene shot back. "I chose freedom." Trask stepped forward. "And now you've brought a stranger into our fight. A human. How noble. How foolish." Noah stepped beside her. "You talk too much." The fight broke out fast. Trask moved like a machine, strong and fast, striking with brutal efficiency. He disarmed Selene with a single blow, then turned on Noah. The two men clashed, the sound of fists and metal echoing off the walls. Selene rolled to the side and grabbed a fallen guard's weapon, firing at the control panels to disable Trask's support systems. Trask roared in anger. "You think this changes anything? My ships still surround the planet. My rule is inevitable." Noah ducked under a swing and slammed the butt of his rifle into Trask's side. "Not today." Selene shot again, this time hitting the power core near the wall. The room shook, lights flickering, alarms growing louder. Trask lunged at her, but Noah tackled him from behind, dragging him to the ground. "Now, Selene," he shouted. Selene aimed carefully and fired a stun shot straight at Trask's chest. The general convulsed, then fell still. Heavy breathing filled the room. Noah stood, bruised and limping but alive. "We did it," he said. Selene nodded, stepping over to the main console. She sent out a signal, one Dreyson had programmed earlier. It broadcasted a message across Noria and the surrounding colonies exposing Trask's lies, his mercenary contracts, and his plans for total control. Every screen in the fleet showed his crimes. Rebellion stirred before the signal even ended. Hours later, Noah stood outside the royal palace on Noria's surface. It was no longer guarded by Trask's soldiers. It was quiet, peaceful, as if the planet was holding its breath. Selene walked out to meet him, now dressed in a formal uniform, not a gown, but something fit for a true leader. "They're rebuilding," she said. "There's a long road ahead, but we've started." "You did more than start," Noah said. She looked at him, a soft smile on her face. There's something else? The council. They want me to take the crown officially. You should, Noah said. It's your place. She hesitated. Only if you'll stay. Not as a soldier, not as a protector. Just as you. Noah looked up at the stars. Earth felt like a lifetime ago. Maybe it was. I guess I could stick around, he said. Just to make sure you don't blow up any more power cores. She laughed quietly and took his hand. And so, the princess who ran from power found the strength to lead. And the man who had lost his way found his purpose in the stars. Together, they stepped into a future that belonged to them both.